Hello, friends, and welcome back into NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey. We're going to break down the NFL playoff picture as we enter Week 13. As promised, this one is a specific attention being paid to the NFC playoff picture. We broke down the AFC playoff picture yesterday because the AFC had no more games to play this week, so it was easy to do both of them. You can check out that video on the channel, and make sure you are subscribed to us here at Chat Sports. We're going to have NFL playoff picture videos every single week for you. When able, we will break up the AFC and NFC as well, just because it allows a little bit more dedication and focus to the individual teams involved. As a reminder, this is where the AFC playoff picture sits. No changes from our video yesterday. Did want to acknowledge it. In the NFC, things are starting to get really interesting. The Rams are now the number one seed at 9-2. The Eagles and Bears, who play each other this week, are neck and neck in the 2 and 3 seed, but the Bears have a narrow lead over the Packers in the wild card race, which makes things extra fun. The Rams are also barely ahead of the Seahawks. The Niners are 8-4. The Lions are 7-4. The wild card race and several of these divisions could get super interesting. Let's go to the number one seed right now. That is the LA Rams, a very impressive win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 12. Greater than 99% playoff probability. That is based on the NFL's next-gen stats on their playoff picture site. Of note, they cannot clinch this week. They're close, but there's enough chaos and good teams in the wild card race, plus the Seahawks being so close in the division, they cannot clinch yet. They are, though, in good position. Panthers, Cardinals, Lions, by the way. That could be a potential clinch game for the Rams, the not-too-distant future. Schedule mostly favorable. The Eagles, meanwhile, look, we can call it what it was. They choked a game away against the Dallas Cowboys that would have put them in pole position and on the verge of clinching the NFC East. Instead, they're going to have to wait. They do still control their own destiny. Big get-right game against the Bears. They don't win that game. Look, the schedule's pretty easy down the stretch. You got the Raiders and the Commanders twice still. Both of those games should be wins. But you don't beat the Bears, and then you get the Chargers, get a little shaky for an Eagles team that the vibes are not the greatest, at least as good as they should be given what they did last year. The Bears next up here. Now you'll notice way lower playoff probability despite being 8-3. Here's why. This is a gauntlet of a schedule. Eagles going to be a playoff team. Packers will probably be are going to be a playoff team. They got the Packers twice. Niners, Lions, both of those teams jockeying for playoff positioning. And then the Browns is the only, obvious win on the schedule, really. A lot of these games, the Bears are going to be underdogs going forward. That puts them in a got to win a couple more games. 10 wins in almost every year gets you in. This year in the NFC, there is a possibility that it leaves you on the outside looking in with potential tiebreakers. But 11 will get you in. Can you win 3 of those games? I think the Bears can. So who is the best team in the NFC right now? This is the pinned comment on today's show. I firmly believe it is the LA Rams. I think that they are the best team in football right now, even though there's not an obvious superstar team. Who do you think it is? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. The Bucs at number 4, currently sitting 6-5. Bad loss against the Rams, and I know the vibes are not great. Baker's banged up. We'll see how his shoulder recovery is. Their schedule is very favorable. A bad Cardinals team, a bad Saints team, a mediocre at best Falcons team, I think a decent contending Panthers team, and the Dolphins. That's why, despite having 2 more losses than the Bears, their playoff odds are higher. Their schedule sets up way better as things move forward. I think the Bucs, should be able to make a nice little run here and win the NFC South. We'll talk about the other side of that in a little bit. Number 5, the Seattle Seahawks. That game against the Titans was not as close as it looked. I think that was a much more favorable, they took care of business and the Titans kind of came back late. Not the easiest schedule, but okay to start here with the Vikings and Falcons, but Colts is going to be a tough one. Rams will be a tough one. Panthers, Seahawks down the stretch as well for Seattle. That defense is legit, despite the Titans kind of clawing the way back into it late in that game in Week 12. Back home against Max Brosmer, which is just a wild statement there for Seattle. Might not be able to win the NFC West, haven't lost that head-to-head once already, but they're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It is the holiday season, the best time of the year for sports. bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which games to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. New feature alert on Prize Picks. Early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. You can join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. That is Prize Picks. One of the Turkey Day power plays that we've cooked up for you. George Pickens, anytime touchdown. Jake Ferguson, more than 33.5 receiving yards. And Lamar Jackson, more than 25.5 rushing yards. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Links in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Let's go to the Packers. And for one of the few times this year since the first couple of games, they had a normal game against the Vikings. They didn't have to deal with all the nonsense of down to the wire or whatnot. Not the easiest schedule, though, down the stretch. Lions, Bears twice, Broncos, Ravens, and the Vikings again to end the season. But they are 7-3-1. The tie makes it weird, but also eliminates all the tiebreakers that exist out there. I do think Green Bay's in a pretty good spot. I think that because they play the Bears twice, we should not rule them out, especially at home for the first one, rule them out as the potential winner of the NFC North. The San Francisco 49ers, they are banged up beyond belief, yet all they do is keep on winning games. And look what the schedule sets up at. That win over Carolina was big. Gave them a nice little boost in playoff probability. They have the Browns this week. We'll see how Shedeur Sanders into playing. They then have their bye. They are one of the few teams that have not yet had their bye yet this season. Then they get Tennessee. Indy will be a tough one. We'll see about the Bears and Seattle. But you should be able to secure 2 more wins in their next 3 weeks with the bye in there. Against the Browns and against the Titans. That puts the Niners in a really good spot. The Lions, meanwhile, do still control their own destiny for the most part. A loss against the Giants would have been backbreaking for them in terms of the playoff outlook. Big game against the Packers coming up on Thanksgiving, then Thursday Night Football against the Cowboys, then the Rams. So kind of a tough stretch of 3 games there. Pittsburgh, too, will be a playoff-pushing team. Minnesota and Chicago to end the year on the road. 76% does seem a little bit high for the Lions, but their built-in factor of they're viewed as a good football team. Let's go to number 9 here, the Carolina Panthers, and where they sit in at this time. Look, bad loss against the 49ers. That one stings. It hurts quite a bit. They have their bye coming up as well, but Rams this week, honestly, let's call it what it is. It's a must-win game. You drop to 6-7. It feels really unlikely with the bye coming up that you're going to be able to make a playoff push for Carolina. The Saints is a very winnable game. Bucs twice keeps those NFC South hopes alive. But if they'd been able to beat the Niners, we'd have a very different conversation today. Instead, they're down there, 14% playoff chance. But to an extent, controlling their own. Actually, not to an extent. They are controlling their own destiny because they have the Bucs twice down the stretch. Who wins the NFC South? B for the Bucs, P for the Panthers. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Who do you think ends up winning the NFC South? My vote is for Tampa. The last team we'll go in-depth on here, the Dallas Cowboys. Their hopes are alive. They are thin. They would have benefited from a Panthers win over the 49ers since they are several games behind, even with the tie stuff there. Not the easiest schedule. Looks a little bit easier than what it did at the beginning of the year. That Chiefs game coming up this week is going to be a massive one. At the Detroit Lions as well. Minnesota, Chargers, Commanders, Giants. That Chiefs game, by the way, this week isn't the most impactful game, but that Lions one certainly is. We'll see how the Cowboys are able to play out as they move forward. They have room for maybe 1 win. If they win out, they're probably in, not even a lock necessarily, but the margin for error is profoundly thin. Teams that you can give up and focus on the offseason. Lance, a 3% chance. Yeah, win out, and we can have a conversation of maybe. Vikings kind of in a similar boat. Their schedule's pretty tough. Arizona, Washington, New Orleans, all on the verge of being eliminated. Two of these teams have elimination scenarios, the Cardinals and the Saints. Saints are out with a loss and a Bucs or Panthers win. Either of those two things plus their own loss eliminates them. Cardinals are out with a loss and a Bears win over Philadelphia, and the Packers beat the Lions, which all of those things should probably happen this week, so would not be surprised if they join the Giants in the eliminated category as we move forward.